All right. Let me send out Discord. Right. Sweet. All right. So, let me connect the bot. Okay, cool. We should have a bot now. Let me pull up the document from before. What? Why is it making me sign into something I'm already signed into? Okay. Okay. So I've got the document pulled up. I'll switch over here in a second. That's probably fine. Okay. So, what I'd like to do first is probably create like I don't know if it's is it a UML diagram. UML diagram. Okay, maybe not that involved, but you know, something. Let's. Can I insert a drawing and then do it that way? A chart. Okay. How does this work? So if I do this, save and close, can I edit this? I can, okay. Because I might want to go back and forth here. Actually, can I duplicate this? Is there's an Ask an AI chatbot in the right click menu? Okay, sure. Let's do this. Let's have you can be on the right side. You can be on the left side. Okay. I don't know why the UI looks like that. Okay, that's a little bit better. So, what I want to do is make a visual of what we're doing here. So, let's make a rectangle. Actually, is there like... something like that? What does the text look like? Okay, can I zoom in here? Or is it just gonna look like this? I can't like click and drag around. Okay. A little bit confused as to how to use this thing, but sure. If I select this guy and put it like all the way over here. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of what this is doing. I can do this, I guess? Does it like expand it? Oh, why does it look like that? Okay, this is not at all what I thought it was gonna be. I'm just gonna yeet this whole thing. Okay. Can I insert from drive? Okay. Give me a second here. I'll just create a new thing. Google Drawings. Yeah, make a new drawing. Sure. Okay. Maybe this is gonna be better. Arrange format. Nope. Okay. Is this gonna work the way that I think it will? If I throw this like off screen here, that's like completely out of the thing. So okay, that's kind of, this is not really what I wanted to happen. Is there a better drawing tool to use other than literal drawing? I don't like drawing with my mouse. I like just putting boxes on the screen. Whatever, man. This is gonna have to do, I guess. It's annoying. Okay. So the whole reason, why did it do that? That's so dumb. The whole reason I want to do something like this is to like map out basically the hierarchy here. So this is the design we came up with a couple streams ago, and I want to map it out. So I'm just gonna start with an entity. So an entity. Oh, the other thing I should say first is that last time I said that an entity was going to have multiple event reactions and also multiple components, but I feel like maybe it makes a little bit more sense for a component to house the event reaction. And that way an entity just has a bunch of components, and then a component can either have state, or it could have an event reaction, or it could have both, or, you know, whatever. Something like this, right? Okay. So give me this. Give me arrow to there. Okay, perfect. Nope, don't do that. Okay, so an entity can have multiple components. Components. Sure, we'll make it plural. And then we said that a component... What just happened? I copy-pasted, and it just changed the text instead. Okay, so components can have... whatever internal state, depending on the component, but for now we'll just work with the sort of generic component. But it can have event reactions. Event reactions. Okay. Give me an arrow to there. Okay. I'm gonna want to line everything up here. Okay. And then an event reaction is going to have these 4 things. It's going to have a trigger. See, why does it copy the text? I want it to copy the whole thing. Okay. Target generator. Let's make that wide enough. Okay. And then it's going to have a condition. And then I can actually make this a little bit smaller just for the sake of space, and then the action. So like the actual thing that we're doing here. Okay. Can I select all these guys and move them over? Okay, perfect. Okay, this needs to not do what it's doing. Sure, that's fine. We can line it up like this. I'm probably being a little bit much here, but I feel like this is going to make sense as soon as I draw it all out. Okay. So, an entity has components. Components can have event reactions, and event reactions can have a trigger, a target generator, a condition, and an action. Value change request reaction. That's right. We had split these up into 2 different things. Okay, in that case, let's copy paste this guy. I want to put it here. And then this is what value change request reaction. Okay, I think I see what I'm trying to do here. I'm also kind of trying to remind myself of what's going on. Okay. Because this was a bit of a confusing little thing here. So components can have one of these 2 things, or both, or whatever. And they both have triggers, they both have target generators. Well, so I guess there can be 2 different kinds of value change request reactions. Right, because there could be like... I really wish my little light here could go lower, because I feel like it's super... What if I just turn it off? Do I look terrible if I just don't have a light? Kind of. Okay. whatever. It's like value change request reaction. What you could either do is you could either just modify the change request. Yeah, I feel like I should rename these things. Yo, what's up, CDOM? Thank you for the subscription. Much appreciated. Game dev? Something like that, yeah. I haphazardly came up with a sort of design for a game that I want to make. And so I'm trying to map it all out here. What's going to happen with the bot? It's still a work in progress. I just haven't worked on it in a while, but I'll come back to it at some point. I feel like it's at a relatively good state where like it can do commands and it has all the necessary features for that. The only other thing that I would want to add are like things like timers, you know, like things that happen every so often, and then like pattern matching. So instead of somebody typing in a specific command, they just, you know, they could type out whatever message they want, and, you know, the bot would be able to pick out like certain words. But yeah, that's something for the future. So the game, I'm basically starting from scratch here. So there's not much to it yet. But as per the title, it is a roguelike. It's gonna be. I want to get all of the terms here. So it's 2D, top-down, grid-based, turn-based dungeon crawler. So I don't know how familiar you are. I horribly misspelled that because I have wires covering my keyboard. I don't know how familiar you are with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but this is the game that like is heavily inspiring me here. This kind of a thing. Just making sure you're not abandoning it. Nah. It's still an interesting project. I think it's a bit of a mess. I think the code base is a bit of a mess. But there are like two major features that I want to add to it, and then I'll consider it like version 1.0 basically. I never played Pokemon. Okay, so Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is like what is it, like a spin-off game, I guess you would call it. It's not the typical Pokemon game. So you play as these Pokemon rather than a typical Pokemon game where you play as a trainer and then you like catch and fight with the Pokemon. You play as the Pokemon and you wander around this dungeon, and it's all on a grid. And you can fight like wild Pokemon. So there are Pokemon that'll just like show up. Okay, this is really difficult to see. Open a new tab. Yeah, so like here, these two birds are enemies and you have to beat them. This bird up here is actually your ally. But yeah, you just wander around RPG style. Exactly. Yeah. So you wander around, you collect items, you try and make your way down into the dungeon and rescue other Pokemon. So that's my inspiration for this one. So it's not going to be a Pokemon thing. There's an entire different story, which I do have the story all figured out. I'm not going to spoil it, but I've got the story all figured out. The rest of it does. The rest of it, though. What does roguelike mean? There are like very technical definitions of what exactly is a roguelike. But it's basically like if you die in the game, you have to start over from scratch. I'll give you 100 for the spoiler. I will refund it. No spoilers. Nobody gets to know. So like you collect items to make yourself more powerful, and if you die, you lose basically everything. And then you have to start over. 250? Nope. Nope. You mean 250 bits or 250 subscriptions? No, even then I'm not going to accept it. USD? No. Did $250 for spoilers? Nah. I'm surprised you'd be willing to pay that much. But no, I'm not going to spoil it. You could offer me $1 million. It's not going to happen. 500 final offer. I refuse. But so I was designing this. I guess technically it's an entity component system. ECS, is that what it's like technically called? 501 year of a VPS with 8 vCPU and 16 of RAM. No. No spoilers. I mean it. Okay, so I kind of want to change the name of these things. So it's more so like value changed event receiver. I can never remember how to spell this word. It's I after E here. So the basic idea is that we have values, right? Otherwise known as state. Anytime that state changes, we're going to send a signal or like an event throughout the whole dungeon, basically throughout the whole game. And then depending on what components each entity has, they can react in certain ways. So that's the idea. That's the main idea. Although there's a bunch of like implementation details that I still have to figure out. But I'm trying to map it all out. A trip to Tomorrowland. No spoilers. Value changed event receiver. Value change request. Event receiver. Okay. So roguelike is like hardcore mode in Minecraft of Golden Soul in a Hollow Knight. I don't know what Golden Soul in Hollow Knight is, but kind of like hardcore in Minecraft, yeah. Usually there's some sort of quote-unquote meta progression. So like usually you'll unlock certain things that you can... How do I explain this? So like imagine you find an item in the game. If you die, then maybe that item pops up more frequently. Right? So technically you're starting over from scratch, but the game has changed slightly, right? Like there's slight changes made over all the runs. So you're not starting completely from scratch every time. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a better way to describe it, but I unfortunately I can't think of anything better. Have you ever played Slay the Spire? Slay the Spire is one of my top games, and that is one of the most famous roguelikes, I think. Nope? Okay. Well, then there goes my explanation. So. So we have an entity which has multiple components. Each component can have a value changed event receiver or a value changed request event receiver. And the difference is this one is like, okay, the value hasn't changed yet, but it will. And you can do something based on that. And then this one is, okay, the value has already changed. Now you can do something based on that information. The only roguelike I play that says that is Luck Be a Landlord. Yeah, Luck Be a Landlord is a roguelike. I don't know if there's meta progression in Luck Be a Landlord. Like, can you unlock stuff from run to run? I don't remember, but yeah, that's a good example. Also, if you like Luck Be a Landlord, I would highly recommend Clover Pit. That is also a really good game. And it's kind of similar. It's this guy. So it's also a slot machine roguelike. It's also kind of like Inscription, if you've ever played that game. The art style is very similar. But yeah, you've got like your charms off to the right over here, like that's this glowing thing, and then you basically play the slots. Very, very fun. Would recommend. It's called Clover Pit. You unlock levels and it becomes harder and harder. Okay. So yeah, that wouldn't be quite the same, but yeah. So Balatro is also, yes, Balatro is also a roguelike. Saw that one and was like, it's Luck Landlord, so I just passed it out. I would still recommend playing it. It is significantly different than Luck Be a Landlord, but it is also a slot machine roguelike. So it's like similar, but also different. Okay, so like when you receive an event, right? Of course, RGC streams at exactly the same time that I do. So if we receive something, we could have each of these. Dude, why does my playlist do this? I watched before my very eyes YouTube disable the looping feature on my playlist. I had it enabled. I clicked on one of the videos in my playlist, and then it disabled the loop feature. Why would you do that? Dude, somebody needs to make a better video platform. YouTube needs to be overthrown. Please, somebody do it. It's not gonna be me, but please, please, somebody else do it. So, like, either of these things. So this one has to basically return a value change modifier. Yo, what's up, Glitch? Yo, haircut? Gonna have to update the profile pic now? Not quite. It's more like a lack of a haircut. I normally just have my hair pushed back, but I decided not to do that today because it's gotten long enough that it's just kind of a hassle. I do need a haircut though. I will get one eventually. There are actually YouTube rappers though. I'm tempted to make my own for better and personal recommendations. That'd be cool. I have not looked into rappers. I have like a bunch of extensions for YouTube, but I don't know. I just feel like the fact that you need that kind of stuff in order for it to be a good user experience, it's like, okay, somebody just needs to make a competitor already. I know it's easier said than done. Like, I get that part, but still. Okay, so Glitch, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to visually map out all the stuff that we came up with last time. And I'm struggling a little bit. If you couldn't tell with all the random arrows. I'm just trying to think, because we need lots of money though for video hosting and bandwidth. Yeah. That's what I mean by it's not like super easy. Because they're owned by Google, they just basically have infinite money, so it's like it's kind of hard to compete with that, you know? I don't think YouTube is still profitable. I don't know. I feel like with all the ads that they're adding, and it's just annoying because like if they hadn't done so poorly with their advertising, with like the ads that they put everywhere, then I feel like they'd be making more money, you know? I feel like so many people have like ad blockers and stuff nowadays specifically because of YouTube. Like that's one of the main reasons I have an ad blocker is because I use YouTube so much. Personally, my favorite YouTube rapper is New Pipe, but it's mobile only. Do you guys know of other YouTube rappers? I'm just now learning about this concept. Like, it makes sense that they exist. I just never thought about it before. Okay, so here's my issue. So the whole game is going to have a defined state, right? At least just considering the data side of it, like not considering the graphics or the visuals or anything like that. Just the underlying data. It's going to have a defined state. And then at some point, that state is going to change. That could be due to user input. It could be due to other things reacting to user input. Whatever. It's going to change. So we've got these two receivers. One of them receives a signal before anything actually changes. So let's say I wanted to change the player's X coordinate. The value change request event receiver, which is quite lengthy, but we're rolling with that for now. That is going to receive a signal before the X value actually changes. And then the value changed event receiver is going to receive a signal after the X value has changed. Now, these would normally be treated very similarly, except for the fact that this has to return some kind of modification. Right, because let's say I want an item. I want to create an item that says something like, if the incoming damage is 5 or less, reduce it to 0. Right, so there's some... The value wanting to be changed is the player's health, let's say. And so this value change request event receiver would receive that, and it would have to decide how to modify that health change request. And so this is going to have to do that, whereas this one doesn't have to modify anything, it's just reacting to something that has happened. So this one has to both react to something that's happened, and it has to provide some kind of value modification, or value change modification. I don't use Wrapper, but I saw a YouTuber dev make their own, and make their own recommendation algorithm based on interest instead of YouTube money incentive algorithm. That's pretty cool. Did they come up with the algorithm themselves? That sounds pretty interesting. So let me yeet these arrows here. And I'll just move these off to the side for now. Can I add text to these arrows? Doesn't look like it. Okay, that's fine. I just thought it'd be convenient to like label the arrows. So let's do this. So an effect is going to have all of these things. So it's the trigger. And I know I mentioned which order these should be executed in. I mean, the trigger happens first and the action happens last, for sure. But was it the... Did I need to generate targets first? I feel like that makes a little bit more sense to do it that way. Okay. So then I've got this thing called an effect. And it is going to have... I want to get everything lined up perfectly. Okay. I don't know if it's perfectly lined up vertically, but whatever. It's fine. It's fine there. Hang on. Okay. So an effect is going to have all of these things. Yo, what's up, Cortex? How's it going? Not really. They used an LLM to make search queries to YouTube based on the DB she made of herself liking or disliking videos, so the LLM can read the data and make a decision. Gotcha. Speaking of searching, my bot can now search the web. Ooh. Dangerous, dangerous. But very cool. Ah yes, the classic YouTuber dev made an algorithm. The main function is done by putting data into an LLM. Yeah. The classic. Because I was curious if they had like some unique idea on how to do it, but who needs unique ideas when you can throw it into an LLM? Okay, so the idea here is that the value changed event receiver is going to have an effect. And the effect is going to have all of these things, right? But the value change request event receiver could also have an effect. But it also needs to like return a value change modification. Is that entirely separate than the effect itself? I don't know that it is. So maybe I really can just do this? And say that both of these things just have an effect? No, it does need to return a modification. It can't just do the modification. So like it could have an effect, but it also needs a second thing. I don't know what to call it. Value change request modifier, I guess. Something like that. So this isn't like a class hierarchy. This is like what you call it? What's the other thing? Composition, not inheritance. This is like a composition tree basically. It's like an entity has components. Components have a value changed event receiver and a value change request event receiver. Both of these things have an effect. An effect has a trigger. It also has a target generator, a condition, and an action. And then the value change request event receiver also has a value change request modifier. Surely that makes sense, right? Somebody please tell me I'm not just rambling. I genuinely stopped watching Doug Doug due to this growing trend. Oh, really? I mean, I didn't really watch Doug Doug to begin with, but from what I understood, the way that he used AI wasn't that. So it's kind of curious that he does seem. I guess he is trending towards that. I want to make my own ML model for music recommendations when I finish my own title like music on my home server. That'd be cool. I don't know what title is. Title like music? Who needs a good idea when I can Google and copy paste from GitHub? Exactly. You don't need ideas nowadays. You don't even need to think nowadays. You can just offload all of that. No, this is gonna be an absolute pain, isn't it? Okay, cool. Wait, unless I just select these? Why did it not do that? I select these. No, I want... This is painful. I want everything to be lined up properly. But it refuses... It's not snapping to the things that I want it to snap to. This is fun. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm overcomplicating it. It's fine. Okay. Whatever. This is the idea. Okay. No idea who that is, but good to know so I can avoid it. Yeah, DougDog is like... He's like... He's like if a popular Twitch streamer knew a little bit about code. I don't actually know his coding ability or experience, but I do know he at least knows a little bit. Okay, that's sure. Whatever. Stone, most of this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, well... It's hard to explain. Titles and music streaming service? Oh, okay, gotcha. It's typically said to be more ethical than Spotify? In what way is it more ethical? Like it gives more of a share to the artists? Like fewer ads or something like that? I started buying music from Cubos? And I'm making my own client to have my own music streaming service in my home lab, but I also want recommendations or at least to know what to play depending on the day. Yeah, that'd be super cool. Dude, I dream of one day having just a bunch of stuff in my house, a bunch of tech stuff that I can just like sit down and do exactly what I want all the time and not have to do any of the tedious stuff that normally comes along with it, which obviously depends on the task, but that would be super cool to just be like, okay, I want this to happen, and then it happens. Okay. Also, it had losses streaming when Spotify did not. Lost less streaming when Spotify did not. Weird. That's kind of cringe of Spotify to do. DuckDuck is fully vibe coding scripts that half the time utilize LLMs, with the fact that it's utilizing LLMs being one of the biggest things in the videos. I know, I think Jonas did a similar thing where, you know, it's basically just a video of people messing around with LLMs. But yeah, I feel like when it gets to the point where, like, I don't remember the exact title, but I've seen videos where it's like, I beat Minecraft by only taking advice from an LLM or something like that. And it's just like, okay, man, how many dozens of times has this been done by extremely similar people? It's kind of overdone. Like Pirate Software, then I think so. Doug is a little bit more over the top. He's on the slider of like hardcore coding content creators and like Kai Cenat. Doug was a little bit more this way compared to Pirate Software, but somewhat similar, I guess. I'm pretty sure he was at least a software dev before streaming, I think. That would make sense. But I don't know, man. I've seen some of his videos, and sometimes I question his ability to write code. But, you know, it makes sense given what he's doing. Better personality, but just leaning too much into AI stuff to the point where it's ruining his content. More ethical in the sense of, I think, whose ads are allowed on the platform, and yes, paying artists more. Gotcha, okay. Spotify did not have lossless streaming until like a few months ago? Cringe. It was insane that the biggest music streaming service didn't even have CD quality. Yeah. I mean, I would assume it's like, it's a money-saving thing. But that is kind of cringe. Okay. So then, now that we've built the tree downwards a little bit, let's build upwards a little bit and say we can have a layer. I am annoyed. Okay. Sure. Let's move all of this stuff down. Can I expand? I can insert. You can only go up to 5. Oh, okay. I was about to be like, oh, I could have done a hierarchy this whole time. No, of course you can't. Thanks, Google. How unbelievably helpful of you. And I mean that with the utmost sarcasm. Yes, Spotify is very cringe. That's part of the reason I don't listen to music. Like, I've got a YouTube playlist that I listen to sometimes, but it's just so annoying. I don't want to have to pay for premium. Okay, so a layer can have multiple entities. Let's make this a little bit wider. Nobody minds if I make my entities a little bit thicker, do they? Stone, why didn't you win anything at the Streamer Awards? I wasn't nominated. I don't know, that's not on me, so I don't know what happened. They got into controversy with MQA files. Now they have actually high-res FLACs. Interesting. I guess that makes sense then. Still weird. Question, is target generator fully random or somewhat dependent on the action? Your explanation in the previous stream made me think it's dependent, but I thought the 4 parts would be independently random. So we're not dealing with randomization at all at this point in time. we're setting up the groundwork for this stuff to be random. But in theory, the target generator could be something predefined. The target generator at this point is just sort of this abstract idea of, okay, we need some way of having a target to apply an action to. And then the action is the thing that actually does whatever we want it to whatever targets get generated. We're still at the abstract here. Eventually this will all collapse down and we'll have like an actual defined thing. But we gotta build up to it first. Okay. I keep hitting the enter button thinking that that's going to like submit the text, but it never does. Of course. All right, we're gonna make our layers a little bit thicker now. Cool. Okay. Understood, I get it now. But actually this time. Yeah. Okay. And then I think we need one more. We need the dungeon itself. Dungeon. Perfect. So the dungeon can have multiple floors. Each floor has multiple layers. Each layer is a two-dimensional grid which contains entities. The entities have components, and the components can have one of, none of, or both a value changed event receiver and a value change request event receiver. Both of these have an effect, which has a trigger, a target generator, a condition, and an action. And the value change request event receiver also has a value change request modifier. Okay, now that all of that is done, we have the value provider, which is kind of just like sitting out here in no man's land. Value provider. Please let me... Okay, there we go. And then we have the value provider, and I guess a component is the thing that has the value provider? I mean, each of these is going to have a value provider as well. I don't actually think a dungeon needs a value provider, but like a floor is going to have a value provider. Oh, you know what? I should actually do it from here. A layer is going to have a value provider. Entity, a component, all of this stuff. I don't have a command that lists all the commands yet. We're gonna make our layers a bit thicker now, yeah. I know people say that you need to plan before you code like you were doing, but I can't. It's so boring when I'm just doing it. I want to code, but seeing someone else do it is interesting. Okay. The only reason I'm doing this is because I have tried and failed to make this exact project for about 3 years. Now, I haven't been going at it like every day for 3 years, but I have made several attempts to create this thing, and all of them have failed. And reflecting on why they failed, I believe it's because I didn't solve all of these design decisions before I went into the code. Because normally I do exactly what you suggest, and I just get straight into the code because I'm like, oh yeah, I can figure it out on the fly, and then eventually I end up writing a significant portion of the code and then realize that there's some decision that I haven't made yet that significantly impacts everything that I've already written. And then I have to start from scratch. So I just want to get everything figured out now, and then we can start writing the code. I'm pretty sure we have at least 2 different plans together at some point. We have at least made 2 different plans together at some point. What do you mean? I'm confused. What is this plan? Okay. Is there anything else that needs a value provider? I don't think so. It's just this stuff. Okay. So then a value provider is not going to be a receiver of any kind. But it is going to be sending. Now, I'm not going to add that as part of this graph, but I just want to note that. Move this over so it lines up here. Wow, thank you, Google, for not adjusting this arrow at all for me. How incredibly helpful. You would think they have this kind of stuff figured out by now, but I guess not. Yep, that's why I had to rewrite the whole code base, because I didn't account for cache after 25,000 lines. Oof. I mean, like, in theory, you're supposed to write code that, like, accounts for that kind of stuff, but yeah, I guess especially with cache, it gets kind of difficult to like, modify existing code to account for it. I don't know. I know that we planned and wrote stuff out before and definitely brainstormed on this project a lot. Oh, I see. And by we, I mean you mostly talking about the project and me randomly interjecting with uninformed suggestions. Yeah, so this is like the combination of every idea that I have tried and failed to actually implement properly. Now, this is a particular combination of things that I have not tried before, and I think it includes a lot of the stuff from different attempts at making this project. So I'm relatively confident that this is going to work out. And if it doesn't, I will simply cry. And then, I don't know, go back to making a chatbot or something. Hey, at least there's more progress. In terms of the design, yeah, there's definitely more progress here. Okay. So this is like the composition hierarchy. Sure, we'll call it that. Okay. Is there anything that I missed? So we got target. These are small implementation details. Okay, I changed this a little bit so that it has an effect, and then the get value modification is something different. I think that makes sense. Yeah, we decided on this condition, right? Compound condition. That's right. Can I not expand this little drawing thing that I have here? View. Can I not make this box bigger? Because I need to add another fit. 75%. Oh, there's a little thing here. Oh my word, I can make it bigger. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Much better. So, a condition... Wait. If this is a composition hierarchy, then I can't really... This is gonna get weird, I feel like. But, like, you can have... Compound condition. Which can have... other conditions. So, like, this is... The arrow's pointing in the wrong direction now, which is annoying, but I don't really know how else to fit everything together here. Maybe I just do this. Something like that. Except that arrow is terrible. You know what? This can be like off over here. God, this looks terrible. Surely this makes sense, right? Nobody's confused by this at all, are they? Okay, and then, yeah, value provider, yada yada. I think that's it. You said that the last time. Look, this time's going to be different, right? I habitually tried to push my hair back and then realized that I didn't do that. I mean, the reason it didn't have cache into account was because it was an uncode memory style. And it was only for me and me only. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. If you don't take caching into account early, it feels like caching is one of those things that feels very difficult to take into account later on if you're not already doing it. It should be random if none is passed. I thought it was at some point. I also thought that. Give me a second. We can take a look at the script. Quote. I am importing random. Oh, you have to type random? Okay. So maybe if I just do if not args, or if not arg. That's right, it's Python. Okay, now try just typing exclamation point quote. See if that works. My music. Wait, did that work? I am confused by what I'm seeing in chat right now. Also, layers, floors, dungeons, save file, game instance, program file, game folder, file explorer, windows, screen renderer, computer operating system, computers, technologies, creations, objects, concepts, cosmos. Exactly. We'll just recreate the universe. Okay, cool. It does work. Why did it work with mods and not me? Do I have it set up for mod only? That should be viewer. Did you try it after I made that change? I don't see a message from you. Yeah, because I just updated the script. So it should work. Okay. I feel relatively confident with that. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay. Now it does. Yeah. That's the magic of my bot, is that you can change the script on the fly. And it just works. Go back here. Do this. Okay. Don't do that. You are so dumb. Sorry, not you. The software that I gotta deal with. Ugh. Who makes this stuff, man? I swear. How could you say that, Stone? What did I say? It works without resetting the bot? Exactly. Okay, Don Howard. I need to learn how to do a hot reload. It was surprisingly simple for me. There's in C# at least, there was just like a built-in file watcher thing. Did Cortex get that one, or was that me? Okay, so this is a completely blank C# project that I've got here. It does have an editor config, which is like the editor config that I use for basically all of my projects. And I have set up at least a local repository for now. We can push to it later, but I've got all this stuff set up. Doesn't matter, Cortex gets the credit? Oh, okay. Didn't realize that. Or is that just you giving Cortex the credit? C# probably the worst key, honestly. Well, it's the most used language in game development. Well, C++ actually has it beat, probably. But it's pretty popular. So how we do in the game? We're going to follow the graph. We're going to do exactly what this graph tells us. And then we're going to win. That's me giving Cortex credit. Okay, gotcha. I thought it was like giving Cortex credit even though I hit the button. I was like, okay, that's weird that it does that. Anyway, so I think what we want to do is we want to start from the very bottom of this tree. I feel like that's going to be the easiest. So we could do a value change request modifier, an action, a condition, a target generator, or a trigger. And I think a condition is going to be a little bit more complicated because it's got this compound condition that, like, a compound condition inherits from condition, but it also contains conditions because I want this sort of recursive structure. So let's just try making some of these other things first. And then we can deal with everything else later. So. Great choice, Stonebot. Not even sure what I got credit for. There was a bot that wanted to send a message in my chat, and I hit the deny button. But okay. Dungeon game. Let's make a class, and we shall call it trigger. This is not like the gun type of trigger. This is just a thing. So I might want to break this down further, so what the job of the trigger is that when either one of these two things happens, so either we're trying to change a value or we have already changed a value and we're just responding to that change. In either of those situations, we need to test to see what exactly changed, right? Because if we have, I'm going to go back to the shield example. If we have a shield that says is shield a good example? Sure, whatever. No, never mind. Okay, let's just say we have some item that says every time you take damage, heal 1 health. Anytime you take damage, heal 1 health, right? So whenever our health changes, basically, that's going to send out a value changed event, which is going to get sent to the effect, and that's going to get sent to the trigger. Now the trigger has to then figure out, because this value changed event receiver is going to receive every single value change event. So it doesn't matter what in the dungeon changes or what about the game state changes, this is going to receive it. So the job of the trigger is to filter out everything that is not, in this example, the player's health. So this trigger is looking specifically for if the value that got changed is the player's health. So I think the way that we would do this is we need some function that's going to return true or false based on the event that got received. So just as an example, we could have some function here that's going to return a Boolean, and we can call it, should proc. We'll throw a Todo in there, and then just return false for now. And then it needs to take in the actual event. I haven't created that yet, so we're just going to leave that as a comment here. So something to this effect, although instead of making this a class, if the only purpose of this class is to house a function, then we might just simplify it a little bit. Because the trigger is not going to have any state, so I think that makes sense. Oh, that happened so fast I wasn't even sure what happened. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at chat when the thing popped up, so I just clicked on it real quick. Thank you for blocking evil Stonebot 6666. Like a webhook? Kind of like a webhook, yeah. Pretty much is kind of what we're going for. So this value provider thing here. Value provider is basically going to be a wrapper around some value. Let's call it the player's health. So what it's going to do is it's going to prevent any changes from happening to the player's health unless you make a special request. So you would have to make a request that the player's health changes. And before the player's health actually changes, it's going to send out a value change request, which is going to be received by all the components that are currently in the dungeon, and then they can respond to that request and do whatever they need to. Then it's going to actually change the value, and then it's going to send out the value changed event, which is going to be received by all the components and stuff like that. So that's sort of the job of the value provider. And so at some point we're going to have to like send it up to the dungeon, and then the dungeon's going to have to send it down to all of the floors, and the floors send it to the layers, and the layers send it to the entities, and the entities send it to the components, and it makes its way down through the whole tree. Okay, so a trigger is basically just a function. So I think that maybe we should not start with the trigger. In other words, it shouldn't be a class because it doesn't have any state. So if I were to say, let's just make this effect, and I know that an effect is going to have something called a trigger. And this is going to be a function that returns a Boolean, and it takes in some event. I'll just call it an object for now. Actually, let's name this should proc. And then I'm gonna add a Todo here. Okay. So that's like the trigger part of this effect. But because it doesn't have any state, I'm just gonna make it a function, and it's going to be part of the effect. So I think that's a good starting place. And then we've got a target generator, which is also basically just a function. This does not have any state. So I'm going to do a very similar thing here. So let's maybe make a public function, and this is going to return something. I don't know yet. So we'll just call it an object. It's going to return a target. It could be a list of things. It could be a single, it could be an entity. It could be a value provider. It's whatever. It could just be anything. So I'll just call it an object. And it's going to take in the event, which at this point in time we're also calling an object. So that's sure, we'll call this generate target. I'm going to learn a lot in here because I don't know anything about object-oriented programming. I tried, it was like functional works better for me. Yeah, I don't know, like a little bit of object oriented is kind of what I'm used to. Like C# in particular, I guess, but like there are a lot of rules and stuff when it comes to like actual object oriented programming. I highly doubt that what I'm about to create is actual object oriented programming in like in the textbook definition. But yeah, we're gonna be making some class and inheriting some stuff, so there are gonna be some concepts at least. And then I'll add this todo. Change second object to event. And then I don't know if I should change this. It's gonna return an object, right? It's just going to return an object. I don't know what object is going to return, but it's going to return it. It will return it. Okay, and then we're going to need another function that just takes in the target, which is an object, as well as the event, which is again just an object. So like the reason I'm putting these to-dos in here is because eventually I'm going to make another class that's like value change request event, right? I'm gonna make something that's like that, and at that point I can like copy and paste this into here. But I'm not gonna worry about making this yet, so we're just gonna call it object. What just happened? I pressed the wrong key. Okay. And then this is gonna be the actual action. So this is like what actually does the thing, right? So in the case of our item from before, where if we have an item that's like, okay, every time you take damage, you heal 1 health, what's going to happen is this should proc is going to check whether or not the event that's being sent out is a change to the player's health. And if that's true, then we're going to generate the target. The target that we're going to generate is the player's health. And then the action is going to be adding 1 to the player's health. So that's sort of the separation that we've got going on here. And then the only other part of this is the condition, which I am actually going to need to make a new class for. But we'll do that later. Actually, I can probably just do that now. So let's say public condition It's not a function. Something like this. Now, I don't actually want any of this stuff to change after like this object is after the effect is created. So effectively, I'll just have it pass in all of this stuff. Can I do something like that? Oh boy, I cannot do something like that. Okay. We'll do it the old-fashioned way then. Take in a condition, whoops, and then an action. And then I'll just say that this is equal to should proc. This is equal to generate target. This is equal to condition. And this is equal to action. Okay. So this is called a primary constructor. which basically just means if we want to create an effect, we have to provide it with all of this information. So we have to give it a function called shouldProc. It doesn't actually have to be called shouldProc. It just has to match this type. And then we have to give it a target generator function, and we have to give it a condition, and we have to give it an action. And then here, what I can do is I can say read only, because I don't want any of this stuff to change while the game is playing, right? If you've created an effect, that's the effect. I don't want the effect to change. If you want the effect to change, then you're gonna have to create a brand new effect. All right, them's the rules. These are gonna be read only. Actually, I don't know. Maybe we can add that later. I'm rethinking that whole thing. I mean, 100% to the rule OOP or functional is more detrimental than beneficial. Functional says everything is stateless, but sometimes it's more complicated to follow those rules because of specific needs. Yeah. Why do we orient objects? I think it's more that we orient our programs to account for objects. Or maybe you're right. Maybe we're orienting our objects for our programs. You might be onto something. But okay. So that's rename. That is actually the effect. We require these things. So let's actually create a condition. Why is it being weird? Add a condition. Okay, I don't need any of this garbage. Thank you. This is going to be public. Don't worry about why it's public. We just make everything public unless it needs to not be. That's not a good rule of programming. That's just the way that I'm doing this project for now. Really? Out of all the quotes it could have done. Should I add a bias? Should I mess with the random function here and like tell it to explicitly avoid that quote? I could do that. I have the power. You couldn't stop me. But okay, so the condition no. The condition is going to be very similar to these other things in that they're basically just going to be functions. Except we are going to need to set up a sort of recursive thing here. And I'll explain what that is in a second. I'll unsub. No. Please. Is met. Okay, so in this is met function, we are going to take in the target that got generated as well as the event. And you know what? I'm just gonna, because this is such a pain, I'm just gonna make a thing here that's called value change event. And again, this is going to be public. Okay. Okay, we can fill this in later. Toto. Okay, shouldProc needs to take in a value change event. This needs to take in a value change event. All of this. Okay. And then I get rid of these Totos. Okay. And then we can just have a function here that's like proc. What? Actually, no, it's going to need to be... Okay, I'll put in another Toto here. Receive, I spelled that wrong again. Receive event change. No, value change event. Okay. So we need to actually like do the process that I described earlier, where we check to see if it should proc, and then we generate a target, and then we check to see that the condition is met, and then we perform the action, right? Eventually we're going to need to code out that whole process, but being that I don't even have the sending of the event set up, it's kind of hard to receive an event that can't be sent, you know? Stone to Stonebot saying random quotes. I mean, like, what are the odds? We have over 100 quotes at this point, and it randomly chose that one. You know, like, how many random quotes did it take to come up with that one? Like 10 or so, maybe less. But okay, so is met, we need to take in the generate target. Yeah, we're taking in the... Oh, that's right, that's right. These are... Oh, this needs to be an action, actually. Because we don't actually have to return anything. We want to take in these both as inputs. Okay, so the condition needs... I do want to change this around, actually. So that it takes the event as a parameter first, and then the target. Because I want to do the same thing here. So I want to say value change event. And then... And I'm thinking maybe we should actually store this as a function as well. So it's going to return a Boolean, and it's going to take in as a parameter a value change event, as well as a target. Because I don't want to define it yet. But I do want to take this in as a parameter here. Is met, and then we'll say equals is met. Okay. How much longer are we staying? I'm not sure. That's a good question. Just until I get bored. I said there was a no reset run. Oh no, not a typo, by the way. Yeah, sure. I don't remember saying that. I don't believe you. Just think if we still had all the quotes from the old bot. Yeah, I don't remember what happened to those quotes. I don't remember if I intentionally got rid of them or if it was an accident. It was probably intentional, but I don't remember why. I think whenever it says a random quote, it should also say which number it is. What if it just... Yeah. I agree. I wonder how it should do that. If you're not bored in an hour and a half, I'll be back. Then if not, see you next stream. All right. I appreciate you being here. I may or may not be here in an hour and a half. But thank you for watching. I guess we can just say pick random is equal to this. Should I even have the condition that you have to type exclaim quote random? Or should it just be... Should it just be you just type exclamation point quote? Yo, what's up, RGC? How's it going? You should go through every old stream and take note of every ad quote so that they all can be added to the current list. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna. There's way too much. There's way too many streams. Are you actually solving the cube or just fidgeting with it? Oh. Does my mic pick it up that loud? I'm just fidgeting with it. It feels like forever since I saw the notification and had to go somewhere at the time. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Yeah, it's been under 2 hours. Okay, I'm just gonna say you don't type the word random. I don't know, how do you guys feel? When you use the exclamation point quote command, do you want the ability to type the word random to get a random quote? Or should it just be you leave it blank and then it generates a random quote? I mean, I guess there's no harm in just leaving that condition in there. If not a number, could do that. I know I and I Hate the French are the only two that survived the purge. Yeah. I don't remember any of the other ones. I feel blank is random, then you can specify if you want. Wait, are we working on the game or Stonebot right now? Yes. I am working on a game, but we have noticed a few flaws in my chatbot, so we're making some quick patches. Out of range numbers can give the number range dialogue. Okay, but if it's just not a number... So basically in this accept thing, I can say pick random, right? So I'll say... Actually, I'm curious. Python? Python. If I say int of an empty string, it does give me an error. If I do int of null, it also gives me an error. Okay. Exit. Okay. So then if I just throw this up here, right? And let me actually, I'm going to disable the quote command for now while I'm messing with the script here. Okay. So I grab the message text and then I try and see if anything past quote space, past the exclamation point quote space, throw that into arg. I'll try to parse it. If it doesn't happen, glitch. Glitch. I'm gonna need you to not. You should make a channel point reward that Stonebot can read called Russian Roulette, and there's a 1 in 6 chance you get timed out. Maybe something else like 1 in 30 chance you get VIP. I could do something like that. Stonebot currently only has the ability to execute commands. So like you have to type a message with exclamation point quote, or not exclamation point quote, just exclamation point and then, you know, the name of the command. But in the future, I do want to add that functionality. Okay, so I try and parse that. If it fails, then I'll just say, okay. I'll say pick random. Is true. Oh, that's right. Python uses capital T. Like a cringe language. Okay. Federal prison. Does this work? No. I just realized that Stonebot has to watch ads. I mean, kind of. I don't think I get any revenue from a bot watching an ad. Like, Twitch knows that Stonebot is a bot. So I highly doubt that they're going to give me any revenue from that. You know, I'll just say pick random equals false here, and then I don't have to worry about it being there. You know what I could do? So I can just by default set the quote index to something random. And then I'll try to set it to something else. And if that fails, just do nothing. Am I overthinking this? I know the answer is yes. I'll just do something like this, right? And then I can add this if statement in. I mean, Twitch lists it as a moderator rather than a bot, so I don't know. I mean, it is a moderator, because I gave it moderator status. But I don't think that it counts it as a view or an ad view. Doing slow snailing Monday in the Will You Snail speedrun VC where I don't open Will You Snail and don't think about speedrun strats. Phenomenal. Count me in. Dang it, YouTube. Okay. So we check this. Actually, we only really need to check it if this happens. Otherwise, we know that this is going to produce a valid number. And then we can say we'll add on to the end of that another F string here, but that's if say quote index, else just don't do anything. I've been in the VC for 48 minutes. Why I see that? Slow snailing Monday. That's hilarious. Okay. So I want to say we'll do space, and then should I say like quote and then the number of the quote, or should it just be the number of the quote? Do I subtract one? I do, yeah. Just the number. Okay, cool. 2 Geometry Dash YouTubers got engaged for marriage yesterday. I'm being so dead ass. They low-key seem so happy around each other, so I think a lot of us, including myself, were silently hoping it would happen. Very peak. Nice. That's pretty cool. I think that's it. Let me re-enable the command. All right, guys, go ham. Type exclamation point quote with whatever else you want, and see what happens. Dude, brother, imagine being happy couldn't be me, dude. Okay, somebody screenshot that. Please, somebody screenshot that. Oh my god. That's perfect. How did you do that? How did you summon quote 2? Dude. Okay, but that is actually quote 2, right? Because quote 1 is just the letter I, and then quote 2 is that, I think. I'm built different. Dude's manipulating RNG in real life. Oh, great, you broke it. Thanks, RGC. What the heck, man? Okay, why did that break? Okay. Hang on, let me look at the logs. What broke? Local variable say quote index reference before assignment. Okay, I was afraid of that. Okay, try it now. It's not doing in-range numbers anymore? Yeah. I just forgot to define this variable in the other instance. Or not. I guess there's just something else going on? Okay, let me open up the logs again. Hang on. Response status code does not indicate success. Hello? Do I need to reconnect it? Okay, it's reconnected. Nice try, RGC. Cortex just has the manipulation strats. What the heck is going on? What? What do you mean bad request? Means the request is past expiration date. Do I need to put parentheses around this thing? I mean, this should be a valid thing. This is the Python equivalent of a ternary statement. Or it's an evil request. I clipped the D's nuts thing. Thank you. Okay. Did that really fix it? I just had to put parentheses around this thing. Python, with all due respect, you kind of suck sometimes. So relatable, right? Okay, well, hopefully that fixed it. Anyway, back to the game. Quote stone for me, please. That's the second time quote 27 has popped up. Okay, so normally this is just a function, which what happened before is if it's just a function, I don't make it an entire class. I just say it's a function. But with the condition, the reason I'm making it a class, where's the add button, is because of the complex. Did I call it complex or compound? I'll just say complex condition. Because I don't care about the difference. Do you care about the difference? If you say anything other than no, you're banned. Complound. The RNG is rigged. I guess so. We just got a weird seed today, I guess. Okay, so this is going to extend from condition. And okay. This is actually quote. We just got a weird seed today, I guess. I mean, maybe what I do is I just say, okay, so there's this condition that has, we'll say an abstract function called isMet. It returns a Boolean. it takes in a value change event as well as a target. Value change event, target. Okay. Let's make this abstract. So then what I can do is let's make another class here called simple condition, which will inherit from condition. Public. Let's eat this stuff. And then I want to grab this basically. Extends from condition, there we go. Okay, and then doesn't need to be a class. Let's implement that abstract function here. And we don't want to throw. What we actually want to do is we just want to say is match I'm gonna need to rename some of this stuff. This is gonna get weird. Okay, and we give it the value change event, and we give it the target. Why is this wrong? Oh! The return value is last? Bruh. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to change these now. Quote the golfer. Add quote. I should make RGC moderator so he can add quotes. Trust. I thought I needed mod. I think VIP you can do it. Add quote. Yeah, I have it set as VIP. So you can add quotes. Congratulations. My bad. Quote the worst thing Stone has ever said. Like a casual. Don't worry, we oops. Thank you, Glitch. We'll just ban you if you slightly quote incorrectly. Yeah, exactly. Is it because I'm VIP or... Yes, is VIP. You should make it VIP mod only. Yeah, it's VIP mod and the broadcaster, because technically I'm not a moderator. I am but a mere broadcaster. What was I doing? Okay, this doesn't need to be here anymore. This doesn't need to be here anymore. Okay. Okay, so we've got this thing called a condition, and it has a function called isMet. A simple condition just has this predefined function. Oh, that's right. I had to shuffle this stuff around because I got the type parameters mixed up. It returns a Boolean, and it takes in a value change event and a target. And this is what the simple one does. The complex one is a little bit more complicated, but I'll get to that in a second because I need to change the order of this stuff. Yeah, because it needs to return a Boolean and take in as a parameter a value change. This one is the opposite as well. And then action, yeah, these are just both parameters anyway. Okay. So then give me this, pop that over there, give me this, pop that over there. Action doesn't need to change. Okay. We're actually more important than stone. Not quite, but sure. This is why I quote everything correctly, so it's accurate to what he said, even if grammatically incorrect. I'll make it up in the second half, classic. Yeah. Yeah, I would never ever mess up a quote. Yeah, no, never. Okay, so a complex condition also has this is met thing, but this is going to be a little bit more complicated. So here we're actually going to need to take in some kind of like a list of conditions. Right? I'm curious if it's better to do IEnumerable condition or if it should be ICollection condition. I don't remember what the difference here is. I'll just go with IEnumerable for now. Okay, and then let's make a public enumerable condition. So this IEnumerable condition basically represents any collection of things that can be enumerated over. So like it could be a list, it could be a dictionary, it could be a hash set. Anything that you can iterate over its contents, that's what an enumerable is. So basically I could pass into this constructor an array or a list or again a dictionary. I don't think you could actually do a dictionary, but in theory, you know. That quote is what you said. Technically true. It's technically something you said, so I didn't mess it up. Exactly. That was probably like 3 years ago. It's been lost to time. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the actual quote was supposed to be. Wait, no, it was just, I hate the French, right? No, that was a different thing. I don't remember what the original quote was supposed to be. Okay, and then I also want, let's actually make an enum here called some kind of operator. It's either and or. I'll call it maybe a Boolean. I don't know, join operator maybe. It's a better way of putting it. And then we've either got and or. Not or else. But thanks for the suggestion there. Okay, and then this also needs to take in a join operator. Why is it giving me all the wrong suggestions? Oh, okay. Oh, it's just okay. Whatever, dude. Whatever. Dude. Whatever. Join operator. Okay. I'm gonna need public join operator. I can't call it join operator because it's gonna get mad at me. At least I think it will. Join operator. Yeah, it gets mad at me because this is named the same thing. So I'll just call it operator, I guess. We'll just join operator. Okay. Now, I vividly remember sitting next to you when I did that. Oh yeah, the clip is still on my channel. The original was iHype. Yeah, no, I think there are at least 2 clips of me saying I hate the French still on my Twitch channel. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to for each over all of the conditions here. Var condition in conditions. So I want to say condition is met, and we'll just say condition dot is met, and we'll give it the value change event and the target. Okay, and then we need to see, so if the condition is not met and our operator is and, right? In other words, we've got a list of conditions, and if we're trying to join them together with an and, we want to make sure that all of them are true, which means if any one of them is not true, we're immediately going to return false. And I do prefer having curly brackets here. If we're or, then any of them need to be true. So all we need to do is say if operator is or, maybe would it be easier to have like a really simple switch statement here? Operator something like this, maybe. So if it's and, that's probably overcomplicating things. Okay, so if our operator is and the condition is not met, then return false. Otherwise, if the operator is or and the condition is met, then return true. Otherwise, we have not reached a conclusion yet, so just keep going. And then at the very end, so if our operator is or, that means that we have not gotten any true conditions, so we would need to return false. And if it's and, that means we haven't come across any false conditions, which means we need to return true, which means we can basically just return operator is equal to and. Does that make sense? Bro, I found a part of you devlog 0 on your YouTube from 2 years ago. Yeah. I was at one point putting together devlog 3, I think. Was it devlog 2 or 3? I don't remember. If we're or, then. Ew, skip. Yeah, part of you devlog 3. Okay, so that's the complex is met function. Basic idea is we have a list of conditions in this complex condition. We want to iterate over them. If we're trying to join them through AND, then we need to check to see if any of the conditions are not met, in which case we just return false. If we're trying to combine them through OR, then we need to check to see if the condition is met, and if it is, then we can just return true. And if we don't meet any of those conditions, then we just return true if we're trying to AND everything together, or false if we're trying to return, or if we're trying to OR everything together. That's the idea, and that's why I made this condition thing into its own class. Everybody on the same page? Cool. So remember a few streams ago when you said you weren't an animator? We don't have to bring up that video. We don't it's fine actually. We don't. It's fine. I have news. No, it's okay. It's okay. You don't. It's not really news. Like it's. I wouldn't say it's that important. You know. It's just. It's okay. It seems you were. I mean, maybe, but it's like it's okay. We don't have to. What? Like, you know. Surely you understand. Surely you understand what I'm. What I mean here, right? Okay, what am I trying to do? So I've got, let's go back to our graph here. So I've got the trigger, I've got the target generator, and I've got the action. Those are just simple functions. The condition and the compound condition I've got set up, although I renamed them and structured it a little bit differently. And then the effect, which I believe is completely put together. So now moving up, we've got these two event receivers. Let's also just create this class, this modifier thing. Just because it'll be easier to have that available to us. Okay, and then we'll just throw in a Todo there. Public. Wow, that's not how you spell public. Okay. No, I mean we don't have to talk about my my quote unquote animations. It's fine. Okay. So I immediately forgot what I wanted to do. So it's this. Let's just make the simpler one first. This value changed event receiver. Value changed event receiver. So, according to our chart, a component is going to contain these. Trying to think. If they should be classes or interfaces. And think just let's keep it simple. Let's just make everything a class for now. And then if it makes more sense to make it an interface, we can do that later. It's fine, it's fine. From the earlier Will Snail streaming days, it is fine. Everything's fine. Why would you think it's not? I think it does have to be an interface. Am I going crazy here? So components can have their own state as well as some effects. But an effect may or may not actually do anything with the event that gets received. But a value change request event requires you to return a request modifier. I just don't feel like it makes sense for there to be a class that's called value change event receiver. It feels like that's more of an attribute than an object. Sorry, I'm trying to work this out. Does it make more sense if we just have a value change event receiver which has an effect, and then we could inherit from that to create the value change request event receiver? Because the way that I'm thinking about this in my head is that a component can have an effect. So an effect always needs to receive an event, whether it be a value changed event or a value change request event. Not sure, but it has to receive some kind of event. So in that sense, it's always some kind of event receiver. The problem is that if the event being sent is a value change request event, then no, it would be the component. It would be the component that would need to return the value change request modifier. So then a component, but a component might not want to do anything. It's like a component can have effects, but it doesn't need them. It also can receive a value change request event, but it doesn't need to. It also can have state, but it doesn't need to. But an effect always needs to receive an event. Might not want to do anything. I don't fully understand the relationship here. Let me just write this down. So a component can have state. A component can have effects. I'll just throw that into the parentheses because it can either have one or more. A component can modify a value change. An effect must receive value change event. Let's say you can receive a value change request event. So if an effect has to receive a value change event, and a value change event could either be the value has already changed or the value is expected to change. That means that a component also has to receive both of those events. Whether it does anything with those events is up to the component, but it has to receive both, I think. Just for the sake of this. Right, because like an effect can receive... This isn't the right phrasing. But I still think this is true. So I think a component has to receive both of these events. I think my tree here is a little bit wrong. I think a component has to be a receiver for both of these things. And then it optionally has the ability to modify a change request or a value change. Okay. Oops. Wrong Visual Studio. So then this isn't... Yeah, so this does not need to be a class. Value changed event receiver. That does not need to be a thing. Okay, so now let's like implement that sequence that I was talking about earlier. So I first need to call should proc. And pass in the value change event. So if you should not proc, then we'll just return early. Otherwise, you should proc, in which case we need to generate the target. So let's generate the target. And then we need to check to see if the condition is met. So we'll say if the condition is not met, then we'll again return early. And we need to pass it... what do I need to pass it again? The value change event and the target. And then if the condition is met, then we reach this point, in which case we can execute the action. And we can give it the value change event and the target. Okay. So that should be that. And then we can create the component. Components. Okay. Okay. So, what does a component need again? So component can have state, but we're not going to implement the state. It can have effect, and it can receive a value change request event. Okay, so the state we don't have to worry about because that's a user thing. In which case, I'm also the user of what I'm about to create, but details. So it can have effects, right? And we can have a list of effects. Should this be an enumerable? No idea, but we'll keep it that way. Sure, whatever. Okay. So then we'll take this as a parameter. And it's entirely possible that you can pass in an empty array. In other words, the component does not have any effects. That's perfectly acceptable. The part that I'm getting a little bit tripped up on is the fact that it's possible to receive a value change request event. And perhaps the easiest way to do that is to just say a component has a function for that. Receive value change request event. And what it needs to do is it needs to take in let's add a new thing here. Call it value changed event. Public. I'm sure there's some setting somewhere where you can like configure it to not add all that garbage at the top. That's going to be a Todo, but this is going to extend value change event. The difference here is the D, which is most likely going to get confusing. But that's a problem for somebody else. And by somebody else, I mean me in the future. But that still counts. Okay, value change request event. Okay, and this is also going to extend value change event. Okay. But now I specifically want a component to receive this one. And I want it to return that thing that we created earlier, which is a value change request modifier. Right? And then what I can do is I can take that as a parameter. This is getting very wordy. But I feel like it makes sense. Okay. Let's maybe put these on new lines here to make it slightly more readable. And when I say slightly, I do mean very slightly, because this still goes off of the screen. It's fine. Okay, so when you create a component, you have to give it a list of effects, but the list could be empty. It's up to you. You also have to give it some function that is going to execute when a value change request is made. Now, that function could effectively do nothing. It has to return a modifier, but it could return a modifier that doesn't do anything. But this has to be here because the user could, in theory, choose to do something when that happens. But you would still... You would still want to pass it to all of the effects. So maybe this should be something more like get value change request modifier. And then in here we can have a function we need two functions. We need one that's receive. We need one that's similar to what we have in effect. So we need this. I'm just gonna copy this whole thing here. No, component. Okay. What the? Bro. Okay. Okay, so when we receive a value change event. No. When we receive any value change event, we first need to run it through all of our effects. So we'll say for effect in effects effect.receive the event, and then the trigger of the effect, right? The trigger of the effect, or this should proc function, is going to filter out all the events that they don't care about. But now we need to say if the value change event is a value change request event, then we need to no, we do need two separate functions for this. This is annoying. Yeah. So like we can still keep this, right? And then we receive that bit. Okay. So when the component receives any value change event, it's going to run it through all of its effects. When we receive a value change request event, we're going to need to return this. So we can first run it through all of the effects. What did I do? Value change request event. So we first, just stopping by real quick. I'm going to sleep for real this time. Good night. All right. Have a good night. I appreciate you being here. Actually get sleep, please. Please. Okay, it's not mad at me anymore. I don't know why it was mad at me before. That's okay. So then I need to return get value change request modifier and pass that in. Okay. So basically, should we set up Gamba on whether RGC comes back or not? Go ahead. Actually, I can do that. Will RGC return this stream? Yes. Or no. You've got 30 minutes. Davy's unofficial son. How's it going? Tasty crayons, indeed. Not too bad, not too bad. I am confusing myself, trying to come up with, or trying to create some sort of entity component system. I think I'm getting it, though. I think it's making sense. Do I want to make this, like... Do I want to make this private? I could. Let's throw this at the bottom here. Oops. And let's just say... Whoops. Protected. We can make it protected, it's fine. Surely our children won't abuse our functions, right? Java, this is C#. So, Microsoft Java, basically. Yeah, I'm doing game stuff, so I figured C# is probably the way to go. Could have done C++, but C++ scares me. So let me... I'm gonna copy this stub here. I'll throw an arrow function. And then just call this. Yo, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Ew, Microsoft? Yeah. Listen, they created a decent programming language, alright? And by created, I mean heavily borrowed from Java, but it's fine. Okay, and then we can throw that there, throw that there. Value changed event. And then I want to make this one public. And let's put a line here. Okay. Okay. The lovely, lovely unreadable code because it goes off the screen. To be fair, though, I am super zoomed in because I'm on stream. But I have perhaps named my variables too long. I don't know any C languages, sadly, yet. Really? I'm kind of surprised. Java was the first language that I learned, and then I learned Python, and then it was basically all C languages after that. I feel like it's very important for for just learning programming in general to at least be aware of how C works. I've never actually written anything in C, but I like the idea of C. And then, yeah, like I said, C++ just scares me. I just saw what looks like the clunk of Java. Yeah. There's definitely some of that going on. Don't worry, I don't know any languages. I just watch and pretend I know what's going on. I know JavaScript, no brainfuck, learning Java. Dude. How do you know brainfuck, but you don't know C languages? What kind of a learning path did you go on, man? Brainfuck was really fun to learn. I don't doubt that. Like, obviously I've heard that it's like really complicated and difficult compared to like traditional programming languages, but what is brainfuck? You are in for a treat. Let's see, is this gonna give me the best explanation here? So this is what the language looks like. It's these pluses, square brackets, and angle brackets. Basically, the idea is that you have a giant list of bytes, and I might be describing this incorrectly, so, you know, catch me if I'm wrong, but you have this giant list of bytes where you can increment the value of a bit using the plus sign, and you can move left and right using the angle brackets, and then the square brackets are what, like loops? Jump past the matching and if the sellout pointer is 0. Yeah. And then you can do input output and stuff like that. And so you could make programs that like do complicated stuff, because this is, you know, is Turing complete the right phrase? I don't know. But yeah, this is what the language looks like. It's basically just a bunch of pluses, minuses, square brackets, and angle brackets. Let me take you through this horrid thing. I go from script to straight sentence language made for Minecraft server developers to brainfuck to JS to now Java. Oh, wow. My first two languages absolutely cursed to actually learning real languages. That's so bizarre. I wonder if it's actually in some way better, because then you figure out, like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but it feels like it would be easier to understand like why programming languages are the way that they are if you go from something like an SOLang. Like if you come from something like an SOLang, because then it's like, okay, now I understand why there's an if statement. You know, I understand why there are for loops. It's so much, you know, it would be so much easier than this. SOLang, yeah, like an esoteric language. It's just it's short for esoteric language. It is sometimes referred to brain F star star, brain F star CK, brain FSCK, B star star star. Dude, what is this Wikipedia, dude? Yeah, one of the most famous esoteric programming languages. Still not getting what you're putting down? SOLang? Yeah, like SOLangs. It's short for esoteric programming language. That just seems like one step above binary. Not even. Assembly language would be one step above binary, I think. So this is like, I don't even know where in the hierarchy it would be. It's like off to the side so far that like you shouldn't ever use it unless you're trying to be cheeky, you know? Bran flakes is apparently also one. Brain oof and brain frick. That's hilarious. I had to search it up, didn't know what esoteric languages were. Oh, yeah. They're like intentionally obscure things. I wonder what this wiki is. Is this above or below assembly? I would assume it's above, but it's, again, it's like so far off to the side. Jokes. Many esoteric languages are created purely as a joke. Some of them are nevertheless usable for programming. Ook. Bit extreme. So yeah, you know, some people just invent programming languages just for the fun of it, and they do super weird stuff. Oh yeah, brainfuck is under minimalism. Turing complete. Yeah. Okay, that is the right phrase. Cool. Brainfuck is perfect. Oh, just the Beast of Stars. Yeah. Brainfuck is a wonderful puzzle game, basically. Yeah. That's what I was kind of saying, is like, I wonder if it's more beneficial to come from an ESOLang just because of that. Right? Because I feel like sometimes beginners don't really... It's not like super obvious why a programming language is the way that it is. They're just like, oh yeah, you write the word if and then it's an if statement. But I don't know. Why would you censor the brain part of that? Because it's hilarious. Most valid reason. Truly. I have lost all sense of direction. What was I doing? I was making a component. I think I actually finished making the component. Which is surprising. So maybe let's make an entity? It makes you think of programming as more of a puzzle game, which could definitely be helpful. Yeah, for sure. I know some people have made like legitimate games where you actually have to use a real programming language to, like, I don't know, make a little bot do something. And it's like an actual video game, you know, which I think is pretty cool. I know there's one relatively popular one that I think came out recently that uses JavaScript. But yeah, kind of interesting. Someone made a brainfuck processor in GD before the update that turned it into a game engine. Doing what I do best. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, what? From the same person that made what? GD players got real desperate, didn't they? Okay, to be fair, I am trying to make a computer in Will You Snail, so I can't imagine that's much different in concept. But also, that's kind of hilarious. Alright. Let's make an entity. Because I think we're at that point where we can finally get into the good stuff. And actually, it might be better Okay, so I've gotten rid of the need for these two things, and we're saying that a component is attached to both of these two things. So let's select them, please. Thank you, Google. That's incredibly unhelpful of you. I want to line everything up like that, not quite. I have to like shuffle everything around just so that I can get all the spacing is right. Okay, perfect. There we go. Okay. Whatever. Yeah, that's fine, I guess. Dude, this is so annoying. There has to be a better way of doing this. There has to be a better way of lining everything up like this. Surely this is not the only way. I'm overcomplicating this. Just draw the lines. Okay, so this is what I've changed it to, kind of. This value change request modifier is like not an actual like thing, it's just sort of there. Okay, anyway, point is I think instead of going from entities up the chain, I think we should go top down. I think that would be easiest. Maybe. I mean, we're gonna have to do all of this stuff eventually, but whatever. We'll get it to work. Did you see some people made an LLM in Minecraft? I did see that. Same guy who made Minecraft in Minecraft? Oh, really? I didn't know they were the same people. Or the same person. But yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, like, when you... So I saw somebody, I think it was Matt Batwings, that like made a machine learning AI in Minecraft. Or was it actually, it might not have actually learned anything. He might have done the learning elsewhere and just sort of like imported the weights. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, well, they've got fully working computers. Surely they can, like, you know, create something. I was very surprised at how little space it took up, though. Sammy URI? That sounds right. Yeah, the first thing that pops up when I search it is I built ChatGPT in Minecraft. Yeah, with 5 billion parameters. It's very impressive how small they made it. The GD editor is way different than what you see in Will You Snail. If Will You Snail is Minecraft Redstone, then GD is Minecraft command blocks. From what I've seen, yeah. But, you know, I feel like going from making a computer in Will You Snail to making a brainfuck compiler in GD, I feel like those are somewhat similar in concept, you know? Thought it was the same guy? Crazy? Yeah. Dude, some people are just insane when it comes to that stuff. I wish I had the ability to do that. I probably could if I spent enough time learning everything, but that's so much effort. It's very impressive what those people can do. Okay, so entities require multiple components. So I'll just create an enumerable. YouTube, could you stop pausing my music? Components. We're just making everything public for now, and we can adjust later. components. Okay. Dude, I swear there's like a crumb or something that my arm keeps rubbing up against, but there's nothing there. Am I truly losing my mind? I mean, so this is kind of it. So this does need a location, right? Because we're going to put an entity into a layer. And I think the entity should probably know its own location within the layer. So eventually we're going to need to do that. But let's maybe first actually create the layer. And honestly, I don't think we need a separate class for the layer. I think we just need a floor class. And then we could put in a bunch of layers. Is that how I want to do this? I would like the ability to separate the layers based on the type. But it would give more flexibility if I didn't separate it like that. Okay. Yeah, let's just do it like this then. Where a floor is going to have multiple layers, but in reality, a layer is just a 2D array of entities. So we would need an entity 2D array, and we need an array of those. That's not confusing syntax at all. Everybody understands, correct? Correct. Not even in terms of scale, but rather in terms of how stuff communicates with each other. Yeah, because GD has like, well, I don't know. I've seen very few videos about it, and that's my only experience with the level editor. So I've heard certain terms, and like, I definitely get the sense that it just operates on a different level. But it's kind of hard to know that, I guess. Components. This is completely unrelated, but Reddit keeps suggesting subreddits relating to poutine, and I have no clue why, and it's starting to get on my nerves. I mean, you can always hit the, what is it, the mute button, or like the do not recommend this type of content. Something like that. And actually this should be nullable entities, because we might not have entries in the, in this structure here. We do, however, need a number of layers. And oh, should we do it this way? Should we do width, depth, and then number of layers? Why did it make this lowercase? Please don't do that. Okay, so this was depth, and layers. Okay. So then this is gonna be whatever that is. Width, depth, and num layers. Is that not how this works? Am I misunderstanding how this syntax works? Oops. Apparently so. I mean, I assumed I would have to give it all 3 dimensions here. I just realized I don't know what the game you're making is. It is... Hang on, I've got a document for it. It is a 2-dimensional, top-down, grid-based, turn-based dungeon crawler, and as the title says, roguelike. If you've ever played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, it is heavily inspired by that. At least in terms of like the game mechanics. That's a mouthful. Yeah, but I feel like, you know, I feel like I need all the descriptors. Sounds interesting though. So the main idea that I would like to be able to implement, I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but the main idea is that, so like in a typical roguelike, oh, ads, okay. I will hold that thought then. Okay, what have I done? I've added the entire project. Okay. Where's my floor? Why is this not how that works? Okay, I think ads are over. So the idea is, in a typical roguelike, you would have like a bunch of items in a pool, and in order to like randomly distribute them, are like the game would randomly distribute from the pool of items, right? It's like you'd play the game, you'd open a chest or something, and then it would give you a random item from the pool of existing items. What I would like to be able to achieve is the ability to randomize what's in the pool. So not just like randomly distribute the items in the pool, I want to randomize the pool itself. Which means randomizing the effects that each item has. If you were talking for the past few minutes, I hadn't heard. Okay. I will repeat what I just said because I thought ads were over, but it's fine. The idea, in a typical roguelike, there will be like a pool of items, right? Like, let's say Slay the Spire, for example. There's a bunch of possible cards that can show up when you're slaying the Spire. And if you open up a chest or like you beat a combat or something, then you get to pick from a couple of cards. And those cards are all pre-existing, right? They exist in that pool of cards. They're just sort of randomly picked out of the pool and presented to the player. The idea that I would like to achieve, I don't know if it's going to be feasible, but what I would like to do is basically randomize what's in that pool. So I don't want to have a set of pre-existing items that just randomly get presented to the player. I want to randomize the effects that each item has. And so I want to basically break down the effect itself into its core components and then randomize the components of the effect. And then apply that to an item. Yeah. It's going to be really difficult because it's very possible that we could run into infinite loops. Or just like something that ends up crashing the game. So there are quite a few challenges involved, but that is a problem for future me. Current me still has to worry about why there's a red squiggle here. I click the show potential fixes and it doesn't show me anything. That makes me think I have confused even the compiler. Or whatever tool is being used to give me this red squiggle. I thought this is how it worked though. Because it should be... So this is a nullable entity. This is a 2D array of nullable entities, and this is an array of 2D arrays of nullable entities. But for some reason I can't... I'm not allowed to specify the number of 2D arrays? Am I going insane? If crash, don't. Yeah, no, I just need to solve the halting problem, and then I'll be set. I'll be all good. That's a problem for future me. Haven't we determined that was the biggest issue this project has? I don't appreciate you being right. Okay? I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm just going to say I don't like the point that you're making. Just ask C# nicely. Maybe that'll work. Please, oh glorious language, C#. If a humble coder like myself may, I would like to request that you kindly don't crash when I create an infinite loop. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Go. Okay, it didn't like that one. We're gonna have to think of a different solution here. I don't appreciate you being right. Dang, we're up to 125 already? I don't get it. What am I missing here? Help me, Google. Are two-dimensional lists possible in C#? Yeah, man. You forgot the trademark for TED? Aww. It didn't work because you said it was a TED Talk, not a TEDx talk. Guys, I'm not gonna rewrite my... multi-dimensional array. No, I know how a multi-dimensional array works. I want an array of multi-dimensional arrays. How do I Google this? This is very not helpful. No, I don't want more information about multidimensional arrays. I know how they work. I would like an array of multidimensional arrays. I am going to lose my mind. Wait, am I dumb? I just make it a 3-dimensional array. I don't need... Why am I making an array of 2-dimensional arrays when I can just make a 3-dimensional array? Okay. Okay, you know what? This is fine. I'm okay. I'm not upset. Yo, what's up, Genesis.com? Interesting username. Remember earlier in stream when I mentioned Googling and copying and pasting from GitHub? Listen. GitHub can't fix a problem that is too complicated for Google. I don't think that sentence made sense, but you get what I'm trying to say. Google didn't fix my problem. I was being too stupid for Google to have any idea of what I'm trying to do. But I got it fixed. It's okay now. We're good. And quote, I'm not going to rewrite my multi-dimensional array. I'll just make it 3D. We'll just make it a 3-dimensional array. It'll be fine. Okay. So we've got a floor. And I would actually like to add... so this also is going to need a location. To do. Add location. Did I add that to the other entity? Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. So now I want to make a dungeon which has an array of floors. So what I could do is instead of having a floor which contains a 3-dimensional array of entities, I could have a dungeon which contains a 4-dimensional array of entities. Because in reality, all I would do is just have a dungeon which has an array of floors, but a floor is basically just a 3-dimensional array of entities. So it's the same problem where I have an array of 3-dimensional arrays, which is the same thing as a 4-dimensional array. So I don't even need a floor. I just need the 4th dimension. I think we're onto something good here. Okay, let's add a dungeon. Okay. Oh, nope, didn't mean to do that. GitHub can't solve a problem that was so fantastically dumb it couldn't solve it. Exactly. 2 hours 22 minutes of me doing slow snailing Monday. Nice. 223 now. Oh, 224 almost. How's the run going? Are you slow snailing it up? You haven't been thinking about strats, have you? Stone, you are breaking the rules of the universe for a roguelike. Is this worth it? We'll see. I still haven't opened the game. I'm proud of you. Very well done. Very well done. Okay. And no, I haven't been thinking about strats. Nice. Nice. Okay. So we need the number of floors. We need the floor width. We need the floor depth. And we also need the number of layers per floor. I don't know if I should... Well, I'll be verbose here. We'll just spell it all out. Okay, so all I need to do is add a third comma. And now we can say num floors. Floor width, floor depth, num layers per floor. Perfect. So we have a 4-dimensional array of nullable entities. And that is what a dungeon is. Right? I mean, everybody knew that, right? That's like the definition of a dungeon. A 4-dimensional array of nullable entities. I love procrastinating by making debug things I 100% do not need. Dude, it is so much fun to procrastinate on a personal project by starting a new personal project. It's so much fun. Starting a new personal project should not give me this much dopamine. It's kind of dangerous. Okay, let's what's the word? Go back to the chart. Okay, so the only reason that a floor needed a value provider was because it needed a location. But because everything is handled in the 4th dimensional array, we don't actually need this anymore. And we don't need anything called a layer, because that's also handled in the 4th dimensional array. So we're left with this. Can you please line it? Okay, that's whatever. So we're left with this, which is significantly more simplified. And we will see whether or not that's a good thing after I actually try and use all the code that I just wrote. We'll see. We'll see. Tell me about it. I have a solid 12 unfinished Minecraft servers. Good old ooh shiny, yeah. Why are we making 4D arrays? So, we're making a dungeon, right? And a dungeon has floors to it. And the floors are 2-dimensional arrays. But each floor can have multiple layers. And the reason each floor can have multiple layers is because, let's say you want to have a trap on the ground, like a bear trap. But you also want to have a character occupying the same cell of the grid, right? So effectively, there could be multiple entities on the same tile or cell, or however you want to think about it. So every floor has multiple layers, and every dungeon has multiple floors. So we need an array of floors, which a floor is just an array of layers, and a layer is a 2-dimensional array. So we need an array of a two-dimensional array, aka a four-dimensional array. That all made sense, right? Starting a project should not give me so much dopamine. It's kind of dangerous. And I'm over here with my 2D planes like a bozo. Okay, to be fair, it did take me a hot minute to even come up with this idea, and I still don't know whether or not it's a good one. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Let's maybe make a helper function here. Get entity at. You know what? No. Who needs help? Answer, nobody. Stop lying to yourself. You don't need help. You just need to get good. Okay, an entity does need a location, though. And in order to give it a location, we need the value provider. So, creating the value provider is the next step. I think. There might be some additional setup for it, though. But I feel like that's a decent place to call it. This is gonna be an interesting commit. What should we say here? We could just say initial commit. That's a classic. That's a classic. Although I guess that was already committed. I'll say add a bunch of groundwork. Groundwork. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, sure. Push it directly to main. Yeah, sure, whatever. Sweet. Okay. I'm still waiting to learn trig in math class so I can use it in Minecraft. Trig's pretty easy. It's just all triangles. You know what a triangle is, right? It's just that. That's what a trig function is. It's just triangles. No, but they can be confusing until it clicks. I feel like it took a little bit for it to click with me. And then I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense, how they're all sort of connected. Tell me how we started with the description of a 2D game and ended up in the fourth dimension. Well, 2 + 2 is 4, no? You don't need help, you just need to get good. Exactly. Okay, so unbreakably solid logic. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong. So you need a 2D array, right? You need a width and a depth, which represents, you know, that represents 2 dimensions. And then you need a third dimension because you can have multiple things in the same cell of the grid, right? Like you can have a trap, you can have an item lying on the ground, and you could have an enemy standing all in the same cell of the grid. So you need the third dimension, but then you can have multiple floors in a dungeon. So you would need to add another dimension to that. So it kind of is, you take 2 dimensions and then you add layers and then you add floors. And then you get 4 dimensions. So it's 2 + 2. You know, it makes sense. Added everything kinda. Yeah, exactly. Almost everything. Now that I mention it, I really want to work on my swing grappler now. That sounds interesting. It's all triangles. It always has been. To be fair, 3D meshes are all triangles. Yeah. Although Minecraft, you take the triangles and you form them into cubes, and then everything is cubes. That donut in your video game, all triangles. Exactly. Everything's triangles. The universe is really just triangles. We just don't have a microscope strong enough to see them. You know. All right. But I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Let me read through these last few messages. If you know a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then you know all you need. Sure. How the hell am I supposed to make half circles out of that? Easy, infinite vertices. Yeah, exactly. Every time I look at my old swing grab script, I'm like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. Where did I learn to format like this? And how did I make this at midnight when it's so beautiful? How does it work so well? Man, can you give some of that to me? I would really like to feel that way about some of the code that I wrote. In Minecraft, we make cubes, then take them off grid and make them into circles. So it's like triangles, but in a very like disconnected way. You gonna cash out Gamba? Yeah. Thank you for the reminder. Alright. RGC did not return this stream. Unfortunate. That is the only script I felt happy about ever. We turned triangles into cubes into circles. It'll come full circle. Eventually you'll use the circles to make triangles. Thanks for all the crayons. Alright. That's going to be it for the stream. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. But I don't know whether or not I'm going to continue with this. We'll see. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. We rating out? We should. Good reminder. Let me see if I can find somebody. Oh, this person's doing Advent of Code. Yo. Heck yeah. Let's raid them. Alright, I'm gonna do a raid. Thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate you being here. Let's raid this person. Rathole 80. They're doing Advent of Code. Alright. See you later.